Did you enjoy the Stampede street fight between Samoa Joe and the learning tree Chris Jericho? Because it's Stampede week, so naturally they got to have a Stampede street fight.
I heard complaints from people in the building about how long Joe was in the walls of Jericho.
Oh, well, we have a way to time it because he got put in the walls of Jericho to go to the break, and he was still in the walls of Jericho when they came back 3.5 minutes later.
Unbelievable.
And I've heard of, slowing down when you're in commercial break to catch your breath, but the point is, Joe tried his best. He did the big dives, he did his stuff, but they start the street fight by Joe having to snatch Jericho's cowboy hat. And then Jericho dumps out a bag of horseshoes. And as I said, the lion tamer, Boston crab, whatever the case, through the entire commercial break. And then the walk fight. They go over the rail and they fight in the stands, and then they walk fight through the backstage, just with their hands on each other, just walking. And they go past the coffee station and throw the hot coffee. And Joe gets a sleeper, and Big Bill comes out of a fucking closet somehow with a chair and starts beating up Joe, and then Brian Keith does. And Jericho hits Joe with his Dr. Martha Hart belt buckle, the Dr. Martha. So now they're making a big deal out of Dr. Martha Hart, the ultimate babyface in Calgary, gave Chris Jericho a gift of a belt with a big Western belt buckle. And he's punching the guy with it. Poor Martha. She didn't know her gift was going to be used for ill. But anyway, then that they have beaten up and compromised and diminished and decimated and flabbergasted Joe, and he's down, they put him on a forklift. And Brian, you remember the last time they built a fake room so they could throw somebody through a window?
Oh, that's right. And there was a guy in the fake room who just disappeared?
Yes, because the walls didn't meet. Well, I'm telling you what, that was a goddamn restoration of the Notre Dame Cathedral next to this fucking apparatus that they used next, because they put Joe on this forklift, and Jericho revs up the forklift and drove him through what can only be described as an obviously fake drywall wall that was attached to nothing and was just hung up freestanding with no studs and held up with clamps. It didn't meet. Not only did it not meet the walls around it, but they were all concrete. Well, there was just this fucking about 8 foot tall, 20 foot wide stand of drywall. And when the forklift went through it, you could see not only were there unpainted 2x4s on the face side of this wall that you could see, but when it went through, you could see that, Brian, you're a homeowner. I don't know how much building codes you have studied, or how I've watched a lot of people remodel around here lately. How close together do you have to have studs? How far apart are your studs usually?
Oh, I have no idea.
Well, 15 to 18 inches. You know how far apart their studs were?
7
in
feet?
this wall? About 8 feet. And not only that, but before he drives through it, besides being able to see the naked, unpainted 2x4s, maybe even 1x2s on the outside of this thing, you can still see sawdust on the floor in front of it where they've just constructed it. It doesn't meet the concrete wall on the side or behind of it. It's just freestanding, and it's held up with clamps. And It's an area where you go under the stands there. That's why there's a sign that says caution, low clearance. Because you're just walking underneath this something it looks like this in almost every arena I've been in. If it's a slanted area where the stands are going up and it's triangular and you're walking through a hallway around that area. They just put up a goddamn big mess of drywall so they could run the forklift through it. And so now they're stuck under the bleachers, and Colt Cabana comes out, referred to as one of the coaches, and is yelling at Jericho, and the doctor stopped the match. Because the match, of course, had still been going on. Up to that point, they'd only been in the back about 3 or 4 minutes. And then they come back after the break and do a replay of it like we needed to see it again. And when Cabana came through, he just reached up and pushed the fucking drywall and it just crumbled in his hands like he was a goddamn incredible fucking bulk. And then they load Joe in the ambulance and drive him out while Jericho and Big Bill and Brian Keith are standing there waving goodbye at him. So, poor Joe. He tried his best. He's a quality talent. But, and why? Somebody leaves in an ambulance every week now. So why are we supposed to be shocked or upset? They just did this last week. Now, so every week, who's going to be next week? Now people will start betting on it.
And again, we saw 2 big attacks at the end of each show. So Tony, in his mind, is obviously heating things up, getting ready for the big August shows. Joe has a TV show to film, so he'll be back soon enough. But Jericho, the story's still Jericho. How awful he is, how awful this gimmick is. Every little bit of this. And he's one of Tony Khan's biggest weaknesses, because he can't get past the fan that he is a Jericho. But goddamn, get this fucking guy off TV. Tony should spend some money and book Chris on like a tour of like Asia for like 3 years. Let him really go out there and spread rock and roll to the world, his brand of rock and roll to the world. And let us live our lives, us wrestling fans. Atrocious, garbage, awful. We need to stop trying to justify his attempts to stay on TV for the remainder of this giant contract.
And now we know also he's the shits at doing drywall.
And on commentary.
He had to have done it himself. Jericho put that thing up himself because nobody that's ever constructed anything would have.
I could have pushed a plastic bag through it.
Yes, no, I'm literally, you just blow on it. It would have fallen down. And it's not like this.
And this is Russo. And this is Russo shit. And this is Russo shit. We're going to put you on a forklift for no reason and drive you through a drywall that doesn't exist. So Jericho and his friends could wave goodbye in the parking lot. This is why people compare this to late WCW, to late period WCW. It's terrible.
Yeah, somebody's on their period.